Go ahead and give me a holler in the questions box with just a number one, just to let me know if you can hear me okay. Awesome, thank you. Awesome, glad I'm getting a couple perfect. Feel welcome to holler in there at me at any moment. If I don't get to it right away while finishing a point, I will address everything thrown in there. I want to keep it interactive and help you all as much as I can. I'll talk to you in just a moment. Hi everyone, welcome to the Turnkey Trader Insider Lesson Action Deal. My name is Waz. Some might remember me from doing support and also some of the web development in earlier generations, but lately I've been pretty much just trading. Trading has given me the freedom to be able to do video work on the side and also work on a pet project with LED screens and police cars, and just be able to take on pet projects like that and not worry about having eggs in multiple baskets, and being able to have something I can regularly do each morning that is as fun and productive as trading is. We're going to talk about some of the recent markets that haven't been as good for trading, but how fortunate we've been with the turnkey system to be kept out of trading when it's sideways, not a lot of volume, record low volume in fact, rather than being caught up in the places that we'll see today where there's blood in the water, where there's a lot of retail traders hopping in and doing traditional things and having the markets not go as well for them. So we've been more protected, but we've also had some trading pickup in the turnkey system lately too. But anyhow, I still hop on board and help with things like this because our buddy Greg, who usually gives this class, is scampering about somewhere, but I agreed to gladly fill in as I still do things here now with Wealth Builders, but mostly I enjoy their systems, like this one especially. In fact, I and a trading partner of mine in the office here was just in this one right here. So before we dig into that too much, legal disclaimers. Everything we're going to talk about today is hypothetical based on historical information and what we have as our rules in our trading system. For me specifically, I'm going to focus on two rules particularly heavily, and ideally with this insider training we can go beyond just what the rules say and what you have available in the members area, which is good and is a great starting point. But ideally, my goal with this class is to have you leave it with new insight on identifying the strongest trades and identifying, especially in recent times, when the big whales aren't in the water, when there's no one else at the playground our age. So what I mean by this, and you're going to see as an overlying theme with Turnkey Trader, is that we're looking for bigger moves. It's a big reason why the bars hide so much noise. So we're not distracted by anything that's not enough movement to make at least a wick. And we might spend a lot of time on one bar, or we might really see it throw some. And that's really good to help us know for markets that aren't printing a lot of bars, for markets that aren't making a lot of screens, that what type of trading scenario it is. So we had this awesome trade today as a trend, and some others that we'll look at before this, but there was a good 6-7 days within I took one trade in this, and the beauty of that was not that I'm wording this weirdly. The beauty of that was that I avoided a lot of losses. And if you've been paying attention to just financial news broadly, we've heard a lot about the markets being rather sideways lately. And there's been more and more news about pending shorts, pending another at least small bubble pop. We also just had Burning Man. We're looking at a market like this in the NASDAQ known for being tech sector. Think about how many tech sector people were at Burning Man. To a large extent, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, the Google guys, they're always there, and that always makes a sleepy pocket. And then to have indecision about if the Fed was going to change interest rates, which we just heard they're going to stay the same for a minute. With this indecision, as well as the string of bad weather, we've seen a lot of sleepiness in the markets. And it can be really confusing for people, especially people new to trading, because you still see charts move. You still see prices go up and down. You still see some moves and say, but look at that run. How can the markets be sleepy when you see this run? And why wasn't I let into that? Well, the thing is, we're not using these charts to spot unpredictable things. What makes a system like this reliable and truly conservative, where a lot of people say this about their systems, that they're pretty conservative, but this truly is a safer system at the risk of offering you less trades. It's very important to understand with TurnKey in certain seasons that it's not about making sure that you have a trade every day. It's about making sure that the trades that you do take are safe ones. Otherwise, we wouldn't tolerate such a large initial stop. So if any of this triggers any questions for any of you, please let me know. But that's going to be kind of an overlying theme with what we're looking at, is not just trades that were available and the win-loss ratios of them, but noise that we were kept out of. So rolling back, we saw this little experience today, and without hitting our stop, we hit our profit target and we're able to get either all the way up over here, which looks like about a 15, 17-ish, about 15 tick profit with that stop. As a reward for sticking with me so far, here's a little insider thing that could benefit your trading. And to step away from the last subject, talk about stops. So rather than just use this stop, which could allow you to catch a very long runner, we're not in a season of as long of runners as we usually will see, usually meaning last 3 years of back testing, for example, 10 out of 12 months. We've actually been in record low volume for some of these markets. And people in the office here with 17-ish years of trading experience have said that this is the least activity that they've seen in these futures markets in entirely their whole experience within the last couple of months. Well, we've also had record-breaking weather and record-breaking political situations in the last, compared to the last couple of years too. And as far as indecision, so before I digress too much from this tip, I was going to tell you just want to make a point about indecision. That's really the biggest enemy. We can handle markets going long, markets going up, bull markets, just like any other investor, but we can also make money as markets go down. If and when inevitably, cyclically, markets tank, we can ride that down with short orders and benefit tremendously from that type of market. Cyclical markets too, markets that are doing smaller cycles, which like fractals, which you'll see end up metaphorically up in trading all the time. There's cycles within cycles. You see patterns within patterns. So cycling markets that are common, that seem related to the usual unavoidable moves of the major market participators, the major market movers, some call the smart money. Those are what we're focused on. That's what our lenses are honed in on, really taking the background noise out of it to an extreme. So since we're in an era now where we're looking at shorter runs and worrisomely less participation of the bigger players, which you know can't last, these markets aren't going to stay at this lower volume. It's not like all of the banks are going to stop trading your money. They can just afford to put their hands in their pockets for a minute, take a month out on the yacht, and come back before doing what they do with it when things get unpredictable. So the thing is, what's unpredictable for us is probably unpredictable for a lot of the world and a lot of the major market movers too, or we wouldn't see it in our charts like we do. And we'll take a zoom out and a little bit as part of this too, to kind of give some perspective on that. But while zoomed into this recent trade, which I find very encouraging, we're seeing more of these since last Thursday, in the last week. I love these trend trades. What we're looking for is this wick having hit this orange line. We've got a green bar and gold around it. And this action over here is green, but it hasn't turned, we haven't been making gray these bars yet. And it's right between this pink line and this extreme line. So in this, because this is an insider class and not like rundown of the rules specifically time, this is a moment with someone that's doing this out in the field. That's what I personally look for. A little bit of disclaimer I forgot to mention earlier. Be aware that that's what this is as a lesson. If I say anything that's not canon or that disagrees with the rules, please take that as my personal opinion of someone using this, and how you use your charts and the decisions that you make need to be ultimately your own based on your affinity for risk. And my risk level is usually on the low side. So you might hear more conservative tips and less risky, more avoidancy things from me. You might also hear a situation that maybe is a moment I'd get in or use as reassurance that might be not canon. Fair warning, and anything you have any questions about, Greg and I see each other every day, so any questions to him in support about anything in this, he can clarify or we can clarify together. Any questions live that you'd like now to steer things in any way, no problem. But on that note, that's all I'm looking for with this one. Green, this yellow between this zone here. Again, I want to really emphasize this, so I'm going to draw stuff. Okay, I've got arrows. That will do. As many of you know, we have two trading platforms, TurnKey Trader and NinjaTrader, that we support. And I spent the most time with Ninja, but I've been on TurnKey lately. So on that note, I'm happy I remembered where the arrows are. So this range here, particularly this range, and I'll tolerate a little bit past it if everything else looks really good. excuse me, the pocket here. But honestly, I believe, especially according to another person in the office, loves, swears by this upper range, but never past this extreme. This extreme should be considered a curb where you're going to beat up your car going past that. But this range here, personally my favorite, but truly anywhere in here. The advantage to this thinner range here is that it's given you a bit more proof and tends to have more proven momentum by then. But in seasons like right now, we're not getting as long a runs. I fear it a bit more. So this is a range I'd love were it this time last year, but this time this year, a little bit more in here. And I'm not afraid to let a perfectly qualified trade go without me or go in sim right now. Let's see. Oh, great question from Susanna asking about how to set up the pink and yellow line. No problem. I realize some of you might not have those two. Let me help you with that. It's quite easy. So right-click on here. Actually, we're going to right-click. Yes, properties. No, oh, you know what I'm doing? I had this arrow selected. That's why that looked weird. Okay. Make sure you don't have any drawing elements selected like I just did. Excuse me. And then we're going to right-click on the turnkey direction ribbon section and go to, it's not properties, it's indicators. Okay, I'm going to pause on that for a second. So right-click, then go to indicators. And I will run through this one more time if you missed part of this. Then we want to add this constant lines indicator if you don't already have it. We would find it in this list here, constant lines, and then double click on it. Now you'll see I have two of them. That's just so I can look at the one that Greg has and use it as an example. And let me make this bigger for you too. And then you want to take these settings and make them match these. Now I'm going to take a screenshot of this for you and put it into the drag and drop file for you. One moment. I'm going to use the Microsoft snipping tool. This should come on your computer. I love this tool. You're going to use it. So another insider tip, if you need help finding this tool, if you look in the bottom left of your Windows 10 or I believe Windows 7 also computer, where the little Windows icon is, and you pull up, you might be able to see it right here. I'm not sure if it'll show you live. So you click on that, or you click on this circle if you've got the circle, or this search on a lot of computers is just already over here. It's just already right here. You have a search box. Whichever way that goes for you. Hold on, I'm going to double check the audience view to see if you can actually see that broadcasting. Oh, no, I think it hides that. Let's see. Oh yeah, no, you can see it. So anyhow, in here, you can get a hold of a lot of things that might be harder to find in Windows for you if you're newer to it. For example, snipping tool, if you didn't know you had that, you can just type in snipping tool here. You get that? Let me show you why it's such a handy thing. Better than just taking screenshots, you can click new here, and I can give you a screenshot of this whole thing. Not only that, but I can take this There's some of you that have been doing this forever and are probably super annoyed to have this shown to you. My apologies. This is there's some new folks that will benefit from this, I promise. So bear with me just a sec. I promise you'll get something very advanced from me too. I was just going to cover up this bottom one just to show you that you can write on it, but if you save it, you can save it on the desktop. To add lines. And I will send that to you. Now I'm going to just remove this one that I didn't set. Make it have those settings and you will be good to go. Another question related to this from Jeff I will look at one moment. Hi, I'm back. I hope you got that drop in there handy and that's handy for you. We have another question from Jeff about the plus or minus 60 line turning gray as it draws through the histogram. I believe if you add this indicator with the settings that I show in that screen capture picture, that it'll draw this over that and you'll have what I'm looking at now. That should handle it. If not, go ahead and, if that purple line isn't drawing like it is for mine and you have the same settings, go ahead and send a snapshot of your settings like I did with the snipping tool, even though they'll match mine. And also make sure that that indicator has been added to this ribbon and not one of the other ribbons. It's probably all good, but just to let Greg know, he might know specifically why that would be behind or above or turn gray there. I'm not sure on that. Also, another question about stop limit order 5963, and it moved pretty quickly and did not get filled. And the order just ends up sitting there on the dome and it gets past it. This can be very frustrating, but let me tell you a little story about myself that is actually behind this that'll put in perspective. Okay, so stop limit orders. Why we are so preachy about those and why we didn't just let you use a limit or a stop. When the market moves really quick like that, sometimes it doesn't let you in with a stop limit order, but it makes sure that you do get in at your price. What happened to me when I didn't take this as seriously and actually lost a decent chunk, I was just using default orders that weren't stop or limit orders, and it wouldn't blow past me. It would let me in, but it would let me in 6, 8 ticks past my entry. And when we're looking at 6 tick profit targets or 8 tick profit targets, it's much better that I run the risk of not getting filled and have the trade go without me than I get filled at what was supposed to be my first target, and especially in Pro 9 Trader, when you have these more opportunities and these quick runs that so a lot of these opportunities you only get that 6 or 8 ticks, and you might not get that runner, and you have a high probability of getting your target, but the runner, you might get no runners on some days and just a bunch of target trades, and that's okay. It's chipping away, but you had that contract in to get the runner. The thing is, if you have that much slippage because of having a stop or a limit order that's not a stop limit order, it goes against you very often. So I had so many trades that I was 4 or 5 ticks past the entry I wanted, where I actually got filled, and they hit target fine if I got the entry that was supposed to be my entry, but they didn't go much further than target and went against me, and I lost those trades, and I got full stop on those trades. And then worse yet, well, no, it's the same thing. I was going to describe the same thing as a short trade. But yeah, that's not worse. It's the same thing. So either way, long or short, of course, all of this is mirror image action, if you're not already aware. Yeah, it's a bummer when that happens. And lots of times we have a lot of, I wouldn't say premonition. We have a lot of time usually to put in an order at the DPI when something sets up. I mean, in Pro 9 especially, sometimes things will move pretty quick, and you might even, something might move too quick for you to even get an entry in. But if you're putting in your entry before turn bars appear, or before it hits your entry price, like for example, if this was another qualified trend, which it isn't because we're too far out of the extreme on the ribbon, we'd want our order in here at this number, and we wouldn't want to be in it until it hit this number. We wouldn't want any quote-unquote better entry here, because if we enter over here without hitting this number and proving it to us that it's hit this same level, we don't know that it's not right now just going to go short. So the DPI is our decision maker, and its decision only works with stop limit orders, but they're infuriating when we're not filled, especially when we might only have 1, 2, maybe 3 trades available in the day with the current trading climate. So it's terrible when what might have been the trade of the day goes without us, but it's so much worse when it moves that fast and fills us horribly late, and then we have a trade go against us, or we have to just flatten it because it's such a late entry. I might as well have not gotten into it anyway. So that's the story behind that. Really glad that you brought that up, because that's something that was a big pitfall for me in the beginning. Let's see. Mel, I'm going to make sure I forward your request on and make sure it's not being neglected, but definitely something for support. But hopefully I can help you out with something with this to make it work for you better. So any specific questions? I could understand a lot of, if I was just getting into trading and just started with TurnKey and had to, especially say like 3 weeks ago, and had to get started with just this system in my arsenal in this kind of market conditions, from that viewpoint, it would be hard to understand what I'm being protected from in this. Because even Pro 9 Trader, which I love, unavoidably suffered a lot of qualified losses that we were kept out of with TurnKey Trader, because TurnKey Trader is so much more conservative. It works It works great as far as finding high value trades when high probability trades are available. And when there's no situation available in the market that's really that predictable, we're ending near where we're beginning, we're not making the moves that we've made before, and beginners, intermediates, advanced, we're all aware of volume. That's a big buzzword, especially lately. That's been thrown around the marketing of a lot of systems. The volume has not been there. And we can't make the volume be there. We can't call anybody up and get anyone trading the markets that isn't going to inevitably, cyclically, get back involved again. And the moves that this market the moves that these charts look for are unavoidable. They're unavoidable cycles and unavoidable patterns that happen with the things that cyclically happen with these markets. But we're not hopping in with little signals and scalping little retail noise. And retail noise has honestly been all that's been available most days in the last 3 weeks. So I can't, without some perspective of what a lot of the trading environment looked like with other systems, even one of our own that has still had net gains, but not like it normally does, and with having to endure extra losses, but it takes smaller stops. So the key is, if you really want to trade in any market, this is not the system for you. This is a system for trading conservatively and only taking the best trades. And if you're willing to take on more risk and sail on choppier seas, you have to have the right boat for it. Like, this is not the boat to go out into the ice. This does not have that heavy front to be like an icebreaker. But it does have all the radar and everything you need to avoid the bad weather in the first place. So this is not a system to do your best at being risky. And that's generally not how Wealth Builders Institute stuff works in the first place. We would rather have a customer be unhappy that there weren't qualified trades than be unhappy because they took too many trades and too many of them went against them. But in addressing that, it's also why we have classes like this too, to keep everyone up to date on what things are looking at right now, so that if you've been looking at it and not seen a lot qualify, then let you know, okay, good, you've actually been doing it right. It just has not been that way lately. Last couple of days more so. There's been a good 2 or 3 of them yesterday. Anyway, it's better to have it that way and have us take the time to have classes like this that cue you in. If you've been taking a lot of trades in Turnkey Trader, it's been a lot riskier. So we'll go into some situations where things look risky on this in just a moment. Want to catch up on some questions. Awesome. All right. Thanks for the patience just a moment while I caught up on some questions. There's some great ones I want to address. One from Robert asking about the zebra stripe on this, what this indicates. Great question. In general, this is an indicator to look for both momentum in a certain direction and a situation that's either overbought or oversold. So a good way to look at it is like a balloon. If it's too inflated, we're not sure when it's going to pop. When you get just a couple of these, you notice it also correlates with getting into this area between 100 and the extreme line. So in that pocket is when we also start to make grays. But it's also a thin area. It's hard to see the range of that and really how extreme we've gotten in there. And the gray lines help us out with that. When we start making 2 in a row, that's when we're at about the maximum risk. That you better hope the markets have been a really trending market. That's the thing. If you've popped into this in the last 3 months, you haven't seen a truly trending market. And if you've followed cycles like this throughout the years, and in spite of this being a record big one, it doesn't mean that there hasn't been other instances like this. And they're a lot like a roller coaster about to go over the top of a hill. You know, as you go up a hill with your existing momentum, you slow down with the resistance of going up it, and you go your slowest just before you crest. And this same principle happens in reverse. We've been having slow gains almost the entire time since the bubble pop in '08. So some people are talking about, well, we've done nothing but gain since '08, but it's been a creepily slow gain, and while from completely zoomed out, it looks steady, it hasn't been. And that slow chug up a hill is something that happens on either a macro or micro scale, cyclically. And seeing this big of a slow rally over such a long period of time only makes this real slowdown of volume, just one of many indicators people are pointing out to at a coming market crash situation. So if you can bear with this system, also this touches on Ralph's point, which I hugely sympathize, that if you're only making $60 some days, which in the beginning makes sense at this few contracts, once you get used to it, you can, of course, trade more contracts on what happens and grab it and grab a big chunk. But with starting out, what makes this system worth it? What's the deal if you can't spend all day waiting for that? Well, there are alerts, and they're talked about in this. Let me bring this over for you. In the members area, there's an alerts section, and you can turn on some alarms to tell you ahead of time, before it's time to put in your entry, that a possible trade might be setting up. Then the worst that happens is you put in your order, and it goes the other direction, makes another turn bar. You weren't in the trade, didn't lose, you just cancel that order. But then you can go about and do other stuff until you hear that alarm. That's something, total concern when it's something that's conservative and it might not set up, especially in a season like this. Now, you're still going to get a couple of setups a day at least. I mean, I shouldn't say that. You should get several setups in a day, but the setups might not hit your entry price, because the DPI is ultimately going to make your decision. That's the price at which it's good, and this is the price at which you're not considering it anymore if it's a long trade. But this, I mean, one DPI is one DPI is the other. So before it hits one of those, which I love this in TurnKey, you get a lot more time usually than in Pro 9 in advance. So you can really be alerted a good amount in advance without it being an annoying amount in advance where you get alerted and you wait forever to hit entry. Now, that said, several times when it's been as slow as it has, I have waited forever to hit entry. I've had bars that took like an hour and a half. But I can't blame the system on that, because I've been through this system and looked at charts of it for years. Years of back testing and the time I've spent with it, and before it was a product, before any of you were ever introduced to this, I've been trading this already. This is all something that gives you a sign of what's going on, gives you a bit of a zoom out, and we've got this alert indicator in there to help you know when it's time to look into that. And you might, if you've got the capital and the risk aversion, want to use another system like Pro 9 that is higher risk but offers you more opportunities in markets that aren't moving as much and have less volume. There's been several great Pro 9 days throughout this. The key to using Pro 9 or a higher risk system in this kind of climate, though, is just to be more aware of chop. So, quick before I dive into your questions, what do I mean by chop? Chop, consolidation, sideways markets, that's what's going to keep you out of qualified trades. That's what's going to cut down your losers dramatically, is just identifying when markets are too sideways, too consolidated for you to even want to go to the playground. And the really choppy sideways markets, you don't want to use any system in. Now, Pro 9 is really great at showing you things roping together and consolidating, but TurnKey Trader also will show you. And the best way to see when TurnKey Trader is trying to tell you that there's no big kids in the playground, there's no whales in that part of the sea to ride, is when you see this here and this. So I'm going to pause on this a moment. What we can see is hugging the 200 EMA, this green and red line here. We never see turn bars this close together in anything remotely near normal market situation. When you see this, this is total noise. So this is a sign that you want to see good runs occur. And good runs in TurnKey Trader can take screens. And this is the longest run I've seen in a minute, and it's not even taking my whole screen. And going back, you go to this time last year, shoot, we're talking whole screens of runs. This, a lot of wickiness here, a lot of extra wicks. That's a sign. So you get used to scrolling back and spotting it fast. This indecision, we're not going to extremes. So let me break it down so you could write this down, at least write it in your memory. Two major things. You've got to see it go to extremes, and you've got to see this line go to extremes, meaning past this 100 line, or you're not playing. This doesn't count. This is overnight. I'm talking during market hours. If you're seeing wimpy stuff like this, especially this market's not ready yet. It's not time to open the oven or the cake's going to fall. It's just not time. When you see turn bars close to each other, it's not time. Maybe after lunch. This is during lunch here. And even then, tiny runs. So even in Pro 9, you would see that this market was going really slow and keep you out of it. But you've got to be extra delicate with things like that. This is going to be your most gentle tool. This is going to be the one where, as long as you're being as conservative as the chart's being. Now, with such a large stop, you can't treat a tool like this like without reverence. You've got to respect when TurnKey Trader is not giving you a signal. If you try to trade TurnKey signal as if it's a more fine indicator that's a more higher volume trading, higher risk, it's got completely the wrong money management strategy for that. And before I dig into more of your questions, now that I came back to money management strategy, I can finally go back to what I teased before, which was my tip. So if you're still in note-taking mode, in addition to what I pointed out about got to have extremes, got to make sure that you're not making a bunch of turn bars, here's a fun option that can help you grab more from runners in TurnKey. So say you entered here and you had your 6-tick target, took some heat, as some of us say here on this bar, but it didn't hit our stop. That's why we've got a wide stop. We're only taking confident trades like this. This was particularly confident. Our line was right in this pocket between these two lines. Gold, green, bar turned gold, bar touched this orange thing. It didn't make anything else but green right here. All good. So we got in, took some heat, hit our first target. But then look what happens right here. We're stopped out down here. So my tip, I'm sorry, I hope you didn't take any notes about that rambling lead up. My tip is to try a 20 tick target. So this has been great for us in what few trades we have had lately. We've been able to grab much more from our runners, and it can turn that $60 that Ralph, you were mentioning, was it? Or sorry if I'm mixing folks up. A way of turning, yeah, like a $60 a day, a trade that was just that, into one that at least got you over 100, and that would have worked grand for us. Now, on one hand, that having a target instead of a stop for your runner would not allow you to go all the way with it like this, but it does let you get stopped at a higher price. And lots of times, look, we wouldn't have gone all this way anyway because another wick would have taken us out. So what that would look like is, let me do some quick counting here. So about around here, forgive me a tick or two, but in this ballpark, you would have been stopped out, which is, as opposed to the automatic stop, which would have been around between these two lines, a whole nother 6 or 7 ticks at least. So you're talking another 60, maybe $80. So 6 tick stop, yeah. You're looking at another 14 ticks in that case from entry. So another $70. Yeah, that's about what I was thinking. Okay, so then you would have gotten from the traditional stop. So that's totally optional. That's not a tip that's for everyone, but it's a tip that I think is especially applicable in quote unquote these times, because you are not likely to get enough runs to make a far enough run to then come back down and be stopped above that. But 20 ticks is in a nice sweet spot where it's relatively more common to hit that. So it's about that where it's nicely gotten a handful of those, where it would have been close to break even if and wasted my runner practically compared to getting that extra run out of it. So target on your runners of 20 ticks is what the note should say, to put that concisely. Okay. All right. Susanna, any problem setting up the line? Yes, this will be videotaped. It is recording. And hold on to that file I put in the handouts, and Greg, when he gets back, can definitely help you out with that. And let's see. Oh, Joel has a great question. What has been the most profitable strategies to use on CL Dow metals? Well, it's all about, in my opinion, the bounce and the trend. Great question. The bounce and the trend setups would be the ones to focus on. CL has been really slow, but I've seen it actually give us an entry a day or two more recently, but in general, leading up to more recently, it's been too slow to even bother with. Even in Pro 9, it's been too slow. But I'd keep checking in on it. We used to love CL. Last year, CL was awesome, so I haven't given up on it. Dow, it's picking up more lately, but it was one that I actually stopped trading it the last 3 months until really recently, maybe last few days, because of Scott in the Pro 9 live room saw it picking up. So that's one that I set aside, but it used to be one that we loved, so I'm bringing it back to my attention. It's an old favorite. For a while there, I was just looking at the NQ. It was the only one that was moving enough to be worth it. The EMD just did not look like the EMD that I used to know and love. It's starting to look familiar again now, that said. And again, everything is just cycles. Where we're making new extremes, there's new extremes in human population, but it's all cyclical. So I'm back into EMD. I got a great one in EMD a couple days ago in TurnKey. The metals I've always thought moved too slow. Some people will keep an eye on palladium, but you've got to be looking for really long-term stuff on that one. Too sleepy. Your best bets are going to be NQ, EMD, YM, and we're looking at the new Russell. The old Russell is TF. That's getting phased out, but we're starting to see setups really similar to YM and EMD occurring in RTY. RTY is the new TF. RTY is the new Russell. So those are the ones I would recommend on that note. Let's see. Oh, Jeff mentioned that this is a good tip. Rather than using the generic alert.1 wave for the alerts, you can change the alerts to, in his case, he created a spoken message that says short or long alert, so you know which direction to look, and also which market to look at, making it say short on NQ or short on YM in each audio file. So that's a really handy trick. Let's see, especially in NinjaTrader, I know that there's a lot of support stuff that is you can look up how to change that. But if you get stuck on it, hit us up. With Greg on vacation, we might be a couple days behind on emails. I know Gregory, who's a different Greg, is on them also. But we will get through those. Let's see. I'm not sure from the other direction how to open the handout that I sent. Pretty sure if you download it, it will let you. I click on it, it just opens in my browser. But worst case, Greg can send you those settings also. It should just open. That's weird. It might download somewhere that you'd have to find it. Let's see. Okay. Awesome. Ralph mentioned getting a trade on NQ this morning. That's awesome. Oh, also, Robert brought up either on the new TF or the RTY, it's only $5 a tick now. It used to be $10 a tick. Okay. Well, we're getting down to the end of it, and I've got to do another broadcast too, but it was great meeting with all of you. Any other questions you have, feel welcome to send them to support. I'll make sure if you mention anything in here, Greg will be able to talk to me about it too. And awesome. Thank you, Jeff, too. I hope this was helpful. If you got some extra tips just before I leave, this overbought situation, I'm more skeevy on reversals right now. That's why I've been focusing. But a great question if we're looking at a reversal now because of all this extreming, that's a good way to think. Because the more extreme this gets, the more reversal is possible. I've just been waiting for the reversals to complete and turn into a trend trade. For example, after this little reversal, I didn't want to take it here until I saw it over here, just where I'm at right now, paranoia-wise. But it's a good way to think about keeping an eye out for reversals when overbought or oversold situation. So Yeah, CCI is way overbought. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much, and happy trading.